Good afternoon, everyone.
We're back.
We're back. We're live. We're in the same room and we're in a different room. And my name is Brian Bouden.
And my name is George Beaton.
Well, George, this is fantastical. Literally, I don't know what to say anymore. I love being in the same room with you. What can I say?
We're making a habit of this.
We are making a habit of this. It's quite a good habit as well. No pickup from my house this time, but that's fine. How did you get here today?
Train.
And
this is the perfect spot for the train station. It's literally next door.
Well, that is good to hear. I left my timings a bit tight this morning, so I got an Uber into town, but it was all good. We made it, and we're here.
Is this because you're now very comfortable with the data mix and the setup?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with for sure. Yeah. But it's great to be here in a new venue as well. What do you think of this one? Well, sorry for a bit echoey, folks. We're sort of getting used to all the acoustics and everything.
It's kind of bright. There's trains over there, a building site over there, very central.
It's right beside the train station, which is extremely helpful as well.
Yeah.
But
plenty space,
which
is a good thing. Bigger than the last place, which kind of leads to there's room for more people here, Brian.
There is room for more people here, and it's funny you mention that because I think we've been pushing something over the last few weeks. I can't really think what it is, but we do believe that we might have a third person in the room somewhere here. So I think, oh my goodness, it's unbelievable.
Hello.
Who are you? Sorry.
Oh, I'm just
Who
random off the street.
That's good.
Here.
That's good. It's fantastical to bring into the Data Mix episode 9. It's Susan Walsh, the classification guru.
Hi, Susan.
They're real.
Isn't this absolutely tremendous? Oh yes, yep. Sorry, I hope this isn't crossing a boundary.
Oh,
there you go.
Inappropriate. Report it on LinkedIn.
Get it there. So I think we are now up and running on LinkedIn. George has secretly got the laptop. So we've got the laptop down here, and we've got the camera over here, and we've got the microphone here. And again,
and we're also live on my channel as well.
Oh yeah. I think. Hey everyone on StreamYard for Susan as well. Sorry, Susan, you appear to be blocked out a little bit by the microphone. You'll be all right.
Be all right.
It's fine.
Anyway.
The only way we could get anything better is to have a live audience.
I know.
We're still working on that.
I know we are still working on that. If anyone knows how to get us in front of a live audience and wants to sort all that out and finance that as well, that'd be great. For anyone that's watching, I'll just appeal directly to the camera. Please, we really want to do it.
Have it in a better location. Like, this is like the arse of Edinburgh down here.
Well, that's why we don't have live guests, mate. Honestly, I'm not sure we're allowed to say that on LinkedIn Live. I'm going to say it again anyway. The arse of Edinburgh.
Yeah. But it's like Edinburgh is basically on different levels if you don't know it, and so this is like you Google tells you to go over this bridge, but actually where you need to be is down below, and then you can't actually get to down below. So it's fun.
It's a data impossibility.
And there's some really interesting pubs and things you can explore here. In the basements, under bridges.
Might be able to do that after the show. Maybe I don't know. Maybe just as a guest.
Mary King's Close. That's the underground street. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, we need to find somewhere to go for dinner because we're pretty unorganised and we haven't really arranged it all yet.
I just had lunch, so I'm good.
You've just had lunch. So what else have you been up to over the last couple of days, Susan? It's been a globe-trotting week, I think, I've put out on LinkedIn.
I know.
few days.
So yesterday morning, I was in London. I was at the Data Management Summit hosting a panel on data democratization, which, gotta be honest, is not in my wheelhouse until yesterday. So I know a lot more about it now, but obviously data quality is at the heart of this. So got to get on stage, and I had a handheld mic, so I was joking with the audience because there were some people that I knew there. I promised not to sing on stage, so we had some laughs, had some audience participation, and just great to be in a room with loads of data professionals who are all passionate about the same thing.
We had a similar experience last week, didn't we? We went to a thing together, and it was really cool just to see people.
How was it?
It went really well. It's I got to talk to people. That's all I care about because I can yammer for days and days and days. So I think we're all in the same room in that regard. We're all on the same boat. So
we might be here a while, people.
We might be here a while. And mucho travelling, basically. Then, what was it like being on a panel? That sounds important.
Well, I had to manage the questions, manage the timings, keep everybody entertained. It was my first one. I wouldn't say it was great, but I thought it was good, and I got some really great feedback actually. So it doesn't really matter what I think as long as the audience enjoyed it.
Well, look, speaking about like the audience enjoying things, I think what we'll do, we'll just pop up the chat overlay just to say hello to a few people just now. Oh, that's not going to work like that. All right, so what we'll do then is we'll just get Scott, because Scott is always like there and ready to like let us know what's going on. Yes, let's go, Susan, and polka dots. Absolutely, we were blown away. My goodness, there's actually gone with the polka dots on the commenting there as well, which is outstanding. Well done, Scott.
He's got skills.
Good to have you here. We'd love to hear from you folks. If you're sitting watching on LinkedIn Live today or on YouTube, you can pop something in the chat, ask Susan a question.
Ask me anything.
Ask you literally anything.
Yeah.
Believe me, we've had these questions before the show, and we could literally ask her anything.
Yeah.
So,
where'd you get your blouse?
Dotty Peas, Dorothy Perkins, absolute legend.
Yeah, perfect. So questions like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
well, let's keep it about data.
I should get sponsored by clothes designers. Like today, I'm wearing,
that is another avenue that you can work with.
Actually, I just got to bring out the shoes.
Oh my word! Bringing out the shoes.
Hang on. There we go. The shoes are here.
Well, you know what? If this is the way we're doing things, right? I've got some NASA trainers on, so you can actually see. I've got some polka. I didn't actually mean that, but I do have polka dots.
Did you get the memo, George?
No, I didn't. I don't have anything polka dotty, and I've got my boring campers. Very comfortable, very sensible.
You know what? They do look really comfortable. It's like, are they walking on bubbles?
Pretty much, yeah. I guess they could count as polka dots.
Yeah.
So the last bit of ambient chat I have before we really get into things is that I was well prepared, and we couldn't have a meeting of 3 Scots in the room without me bringing along a bottle of this. So I did actually bring my bottle of Iron Brew. It is the juice of the gods. What's your thoughts on Iron Brew out of 10? I mean, 11. Anything less than 10 is just...
11.
Someone I once gave a taste to someone who was in America, and they said it tasted like bubblegum, and my face recoiled in a way that was like, what?
Have you seen their latest ad campaign? It's like asking people what it tastes of. Like, everyone's got a different opinion.
I've not.
But also...
I wouldn't have said bubblegum.
For anyone outside the UK watching, Scotland is one of the only countries in the world where Coca-Cola is outsold by another soft drink. It's that good.
That is legit true. That is a fact. That is a fact. Not just because Susan said it and she's the classification guru. It is an actual fact.
You go to McDonald's, you don't get Fanta on tap. It's Iron Brew.
No, I missed that when I go down to England. I can't get my Iron Brew with my meal.
I have asked. I do try.
I know. I know.
You're like, what?
And at the risk of tenuously bringing things back on track, because we could, I think we might veer into other Scottish things later on. But let's come back to that. But Susan, just for the viewers, I can't believe anyone's on this show that doesn't know who you are or what you do. But why don't you give us a wee, just brief overview about what you do and how you got there?
Probably.
I'll drink some Iron Brew in the background.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if Dalton's watching, but I just feel like I should say hi because you introduced me to Dalton, and he's the green bow-tied hunk of a man. And one day we will meet Dalton. One day we will meet.
Almost spat my Iron Brew out there.
So if you don't know me, I am Susan Walsh, the classification guru, fixer of dirty data. I started out in the procurement space, classifying spend data, showing companies what they're spending their money on so they can make cost savings. But now I also clean databases, CRM systems, ERP systems, P2P systems, every acronym you can think of, I can clean it. And work globally with the most amazing companies, but because nobody wants to admit they have dirty data, I can not really tell you any of them. You just have to take my word for it. Mm-hmm. But I've got a team now, there's 5 of us, and we really love what we're doing.
And George and I were having a chat yesterday about how you do the job that we secretly hate to do.
Yeah.
We do
Like that thing, so it's just that, this is a great leaping off point, right? So that thing, let's just take USA as an example, right? U.S.A. and USA and U space S.A. and US in United States, and we could literally spend an hour recounting different versions of that. Mm-hmm. But that's very typical of the type of thing that you go in and wade into and just click your magical fingers.
Yeah, and states as well. So you get states, you get the abbreviations of the abbreviations, you get it all. So standardize all that stuff. Same with company names, Dell Inc., Dell Limited, Dell Computers, Dell Software, that all becomes Dell, IBM, I.B.M, IBM Inc., IBM Limited, all of it. But there's a real, you have to have a certain mindset to do this, but there is a real sense of satisfaction when you have that clean data set at the end. And to be honest, most regular Joes on the street wouldn't probably notice the difference unless we show them a side-by-side comparison and are like, this is what we did for you.
Yeah, it is very true. That sort of mapping, and you will use the word again, classification, because it is the best word, is that piece that, as you say, you have to have quite a methodical mindset to be able to. How have sort of things evolved over the last you've been doing this a long time, so how have things evolved from like sitting there with an Excel spreadsheet and taking each copy of USA and mapping it? So how has that all changed over the last few years then?
Well, the business is coming up for its 5-year anniversary, which is huge. I just posted yesterday, it's 10 years since my first business closed. So to get to 5 years after the first one failing before it even hit a year is a huge milestone for me. I worked at a spend analytics company before I did this, so they were using a tool called Omniscope, which is a data modeling and visualization tool. So think of Alteryx and Tableau or Click in one tool, and that's what it does. And a lot more, I just don't use it for other stuff. And while I was working there, I developed my own kind of methodology, just found, I'm always about process improvement. How can I do this faster, quicker, more efficiently, but still be accurate?
That doesn't come across at all,
no,
honestly.
No. And I just found ways to do this. And when it was time to leave and I didn't know where I could get a job doing the same thing, I set up my own business and continued with the Omniscope route. But I've been very fortunate to take on a Kickstarter at the beginning of the year, which is funded through the government. So he's with me for 6 months, but he will be staying on. He's getting offered a permanent full-time job because he has managed to automate a lot of processes that we've been doing manually, because I didn't have the skills myself to be able to automate it. So we just did it manually. So sometimes we're shaving days off for projects now. Prices are not going down, by the way.
Just to be clear, prices are not going down. They're not going down, folks.
Quality is going up.
Inflation is still going up.
Yeah.
But quality is going up. And it just means we get extra time to be thorough in our checks and make sure everything's right. And, we don't blanket automate everything. We automate the things we can be very sure about. One of the things that I see quite often is Inc. at the end of a company name. And people will just do a search and replace on the word Inc. And it'll come out the middle of all the words with Inc. in it, which means you have half your supplier database with the word Inc. missing from the middle of its name. So you have to be really careful about what you choose to put into these tools and automation. But we know what works and what doesn't. So
yeah. And in terms of the difference that sort of work makes, right? Because there's two scenarios here. There's right at the beginning of the project where you understand you've laid the groundwork, you've done all the right things, and Scott will be nodding his head here in the background saying you've put all the work in place to start with. And that's one place to start from, right? Where you've got buy-in from executives and it's come all the way down to say, right, let's clean our data. But you must get brought into situations where the data is hellish, for want of another word, and it hasn't necessarily been maintained well throughout the years.
That's all the projects.
That's all the projects. There you go.
One person's hell is
you really should meet Scott,
hell.
You need to get on. But it's what are the differences in approach there? Because obviously, are you sometimes brought in emergency situations like this data quality is just so bad and we need to get it done within X amount of time? We need to fix this so that the next Y can happen in the chain. How do you necessarily get pulled in?
Maybe out of all the projects and clients I've worked with over the 5 years, maybe 2 or 3 have been proactive. The rest are all reactive. Like, it's hit the fan, we are in trouble, can you help us? And the biggest problem I get is trying to persuade people to invest in their data quality. It's not a cost, it's an investment. Be proactive, fix those problems before they happen, and you'll save money. But that investing in data quality, I mean, it is seen as a menial job, but when you do it day in, day out, and I have done for 10 years now, I can do it faster and better and more accurately than anyone in your team, and I don't care who they are. They've got a million other jobs they need to do. The data quality thing is going to go to the bottom of the list. For us, that's the priority. It gets done all day, every day. It's the first thing we do. So,
with almost immediately quantifiable results, I would think.
I think so, and it could be cost savings. I worked with a government department last year and helped them rationalise some of their spreadsheets and improve their process. They saved 6 hours of manual input time and 4 hours of query resolving in a week between two people. So 10 hours in 1 week just by...
And what was the percentage you said there was reactionary versus people planning and thinking it's a good idea to invest in?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say 90%, I would say.
90%
Yeah.
reactive. Yeah. I mean, I guess some people don't know that they have the problem until they actually try and work with that data.
Until they find it. I can find the problems for them. They don't always like that either. But I mean, I can tell you that, there are certain companies that I talk to and it can be years before anything happens. It's that low down the priority list.
Okay. But how, so I'm going to take some examples from some recent works that I've done. For example, an organization with that sells a single range of products, but these products have completely different names on different systems. So they have a CRM system where they do the selling, and the difficulty there is then mapping. So when they get through to actually invoicing for these products, they have an invoicing process. Then when you try and analyze, okay, who sold this?
And which one?
And which one?
I'm just about to start a project that's very similar to that for retail marketing, so category management. They sell a lot of products in retail stores. So they get data from Tesco Boots, Kantar, IRI, Nielsen. And each company will name it slightly differently and categorize it slightly differently. So they have no visibility across the market on how much they're selling of one single product. So we're about to take all that data, merge it together, standardize it, and then give them a taxonomy with a single categorization. And then we can map it back to whichever retailer has their own taxonomy so that they can manage it going forward in the future. And I mean, that's going to be huge for them because they could find gaps in the market, they could find out what's actually doing better than they thought or not as well. They could find trends that they didn't know about. There's so many opportunities.
And this particular company wanted to understand the profitability margins. And that was really difficult because you have one team selling through a CRM that calls it something completely different to the billing system, to the ERP on the other end.
And it's not always possible to change the original input system. So you have to find a way to work around it and make it work for you. I mean, just because you can't change the original system doesn't mean you can't do something.
Well, that's a good point. We're just going to launch into our comments here because we've got a few things that are happening. So first of all, ClickDork, obviously, Dalton's been mentioned a few times. Michael has picked up on this. I know that Michael's attended our shows quite a few times, but I saw an interesting one here from Stefan that I want to bring up. So he wants to know a bit more about what process steps you go through and what does a typical data cleaning process look like, and like standardizing the data, how considering all stakeholders and their opinions on which is a standardization. Now I know that's a lot.
They don't get opinions.
They don't get opinions. The job just gets done. But how standardized is your process then, and how bespoke do you have to make it from a company to company?
It's tailored for each project, but actually there are standard things that we do. So the first thing that I would ask of any client would be, what do you want your end goal to be? And I don't mean just like fix this data, but what are you going to use the data for? How are you going to use it? What do you need? Like, we can categorize it, but do you need us to tidy up like the towns and cities and counties as well? Do you need to know region information? Do you need your product descriptions tidied up, or are you quite happy just to look at the categorization? So things like that we'll ask. And then the first process will normally be the data prep, the data modeling stage. So it might be one file or it might be multiple files, merge them together, reformat everything, particularly stuff in the US, you have to be careful with dates and things because they're the different way around. Learning from this year is we have a US client. Every time we open a file in the UK with the laptop with the UK settings, it tries to fix the US dates. And when we put it into Omniscope, it just goes crazy.
Bananas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
bananas.
my data analyst has now got his laptop set to US settings. So when we open the file, everything's fine.
So you got to open the file, be able to open the file enough to get it into the tool to do the pre-processing and then get it into the right format.
Yeah, and it's hard because if you open it, like normally you would look at the raw data to check that your data that you're working with is correct. But if you're opening it and it's not right, so we've figured a way to go around that. And so that would be the first part, and then it would normally be split up between the team, and then we would go through the normalization stage first of all. So all the suppliers would be normalized, all the suffixes removed. You know, your limited, your inks, your .uk's or whatever .sa, whatever it is. Then we can categorize the data. Now, if it's a new project, we'll categorize that manually from scratch. If it's an existing client or company that we've already classified some data, we have master lists, so we can map over anything we've seen before and automatically classify that. And then if it's database stuff, we've got models that we'll run it through to remove formatting, etc., commas, put it into a standard kind of case size. You know, it's important to think about those kind of things as well.
Yeah.
Then it'll come back, it'll be checked, and then individually, all the individual files, they'll be merged back together, it'll be checked again as a whole for consistency, and then it'll go back to the client for review.
And then ultimately, does this go back into the source system, or is this provided as a sort of mapping table then to...
I think most.
I know what your answer is going to be here. Before you answer the question, I'm just interested to see now what your answer is, but I think I know what your answer is going to be. I think your answer is going to be, that's what should happen, but it never does.
Actually, it could be. I don't honestly know. I just send it back as a CSV, and it's up to them what they want to do with it. But the reality is, I deal with procurement mainly. They can't put what they need in the finance system, so they have to look at it as an external
right.
database, basically.
I think there's a couple of things I want to raise here. And first thing is the importance when it gets to analytics and visualization of this foundational piece that you're talking about. And just to cite an example, maps. Right, I want to talk about maps because geo-encoding and maps and not having the right postcode or name of a town or a country, and honestly, you have no idea. Well, you probably do, about the frustration as an analytics professional when you're building a front-end component that deals with geographies, and only 29% of the geographies reverse geo-encode. So you get massive parts of. Not so much countries, but when you're talking about cities and towns.
We did a project for a land-owned
and the reverse geo-encoder just literally throws its hands up and goes, I can't deal with that.
Had to get the latitude and longitude of the buildings using Google Maps and Google Images. That was the only way we could get the information. But I've done some podcasts with a company called Safe Software, and they are spatial data experts. And it's the same thing, like they are building replica digital twins of buildings, etc. You get the dimensions wrong, that's it. You're in trouble when you get to the site, you know. Yeah.
So that was the first thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is I think there's always going to be a demand for your services, right? Because in the land of data and analytics as a wider space, there are a lot of fad things that happen, right? There are a lot of things that come in and out, and it's fashionable to do this. It's fashionable to be on-prem, and then it's fashionable to be in the cloud. But these are all optional. You can do these things if you want. If you really want to stick with the old way, you can. But when you're talking about the crux and the fundamental issues with your data sets, that's something that you'll only be able to get so far along your company journey, and it's going to kill you. Like, it really is, isn't it? And we're not overstating this. This is going to become a very serious issue for a company when it starts growing.
I think there's a huge myth in the industry that you buy this software off the shelf and it's going to fix all your problems. The reality is this software is built for a generic range of companies. You might have industry-specific needs that won't be met, or that the automation doesn't understand. And also, this will always be a job that nobody wants to do, or very few people. So it's a good space to be in. And honestly, I could not have imagined how much my business would have grown in the last couple of years, I honestly thought that with everybody looking at data more, they would start to understand it more, but they seem to understand it less. They find more problems. And so it's keeping us very busy, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I think with more data comes more problems. I think the other issue, it's very easy for people to say at the start, I'm going to put in all sorts of tools and sort of input filters to make sure that I'm capturing data properly. But inevitably, you're in charge of running your business, and so that then becomes a secondary issue. I think. I've seen some of your sort of previous times you've been on the QVMS. You've been talking about some of the things that you could put in place to actually get data structured at source so that you don't have dirty data.
Yes.
The issue is that you can talk, I think, until you're blue in the face about that, but it's always going to be something that you think about. It's an afterthought. And the best, I've seen all sorts of AI tools, machine learning tools that claim to be able to fix your data. They're not quite there yet.
They're fixing the problem, not preventing the problem.
Exactly. I really think it takes an evangelist, somebody like yourself, to be out there getting the message across every single day.
So this is topical, right? So we've got this just, I can't believe you, maybe you saw this, maybe you didn't, but Nick's got a question up here as well. Have you had any success using AI tools or processes to automate data cleansing? So where do you sit on the fence here, Susan, right? Are you like the manual classification guru, and there's the AI classification guru that lives in another land somewhere else that tries to do it differently? Where do you sort of philosophically sit on this fence?
Like, as I said, I'm all about process improvement and efficiencies. Now, if there is an accurate and reliable way to use automation to clean data, then I'm absolutely all for that. And there are, I haven't used the tools, but I know there are a lot of good tools out there that can help with address cleaning, etc. We're starting to build some rules and things to help us do that internally. There's no point in getting someone to sit for days doing that if we can help to automate it. But you still need somebody to look over it and who understands the addresses and the context of the data. Trying to get AI to understand context can be very difficult.
Yeah. And I think that's the crux of what we're talking about, right? And an AI and an automation tool does not know the context of your business. And it's very similar in the analytics universe to using something like Data Robot to predict what's going to happen with your data. And that you can teach it everything mechanically about the data, and you can tell it, okay, the USA example, to look for the dots and the spaces. But you can't really teach it the meaning of,
there's an extra dot in the USA. It might not recognise that extra dot as then that needs to be changed. It depends on the rules and things.
I haven't seen a product, but I do feel like a crowdsourced type of a product might work here. What I have seen is a trend to moving to data catalogs. So that's a catalog that you'll put in front of your data. It then democratizes data across your business. So that's topical. We're just talking about data democratization. Democratizes data across your business, and some of them will give quality scores on the data that you have access to. How that works, I don't really know.
It depends on the data. It really does, because in the spend data classification space, it won't know if it's right or not. You can't use a data point and say yes or no on it. It's very contextual. And again, people have asked, what's the best spend data classification tool? Well, there's loads of them out there, but if there was one that was actually really good, everybody would be using it. However, I often say, if you were to build one for your specific business, then that would be amazing, because it knows your business, it's only dealing with your business. All these other tools are having to deal with all the industries, all the different possibilities, and it's too broad.
Right. So please pardon my ignorance here, but when you're talking about classification, does that include not only fixing your USA and US, but also grouping that into a continent, for example, or if it's a spend category, grouping that into
a lot of it
hierarchy?
Is Iron Brew would be under food and drink. Level 2 might be beverages, and then level 3 might be soft drinks or fizzy drinks. And then you could have a level 4 that's Iron Brew, Coke, or carbonated, non-carbonated drinks.
Goodness.
That could be used for, how much are we selling, how much are we buying, how much are we manufacturing, or, you could separate the ingredients out, the sugar, the flavourings,
Right. That kind of blows my mind a little bit, because then you can have the spelling correct, but it's in the wrong category.
Yeah. We've got different countries, different spellings.
Yeah.
So let's rewind just a touch then, and you mentioned the word taxonomy quite close to the beginning there. So I think for everyone's clarity, not just mine, taxonomy. First of all, what does that mean in terms of the context of what we're talking about? And second of all, how does that relate to the examples that we're talking about here as well?
Well, apparently, I think it originated, is it Animals was the original taxonomy.
I'm going to nod and say
now in my world, it's a table with maybe 1 to 5 levels, and you would use this table of items to classify or categorize what a supplier does. So what has this company bought from Dell? What has this company bought from Brew? What has this company bought from Facebook? So they're common, well, not Iron Brew, but Facebook, Dell, IBM, PwC, they are all common suppliers that you would see in spend data. PwC, for example, level 1 would be professional services, level 2 might be business or management consulting, or professional services, maybe then consultancy, then business or management consulting. And there's so many different types of consulting, it's wild out there.
In terms of consulting, it's like when you get those, right, sorry, this is a bit of a rant, right? But see when you go into some of these websites and they ask you what category your business is, and they don't give you, well, first of all, they give you too many choices.
Company's house? That's the worst.
Sometimes they give you a free text box that only populates when you start to type it in. So you don't know what the list is, and you're just scrabbling around for like IT or consultancy or visualization or business intelligence or taxonomy. And you're sitting there the whole time, and it's just a communication breakdown issue, and it's just an issue of not having the right message.
How can they find you if you can't define what you do?
And if you can't define yourself, what chance does anyone else have? And I think that's a huge crux of what we're talking about here. If we can't define our own hierarchies and know them like that, then how can we expect anyone else externally to understand how we're structured?
So it depends on the context. So something like Companies House, you have to choose something. But when it comes to drop-down lists, people will often are lazy. They will often just choose the first thing.
Hey, accountant.
Yes, that's why you end up with 20% more of something than you expect, because everyone's just picked the default category. It's just that one. So do you deal with that side of things as well, not just the actual filtering of the data and actually aggregating it up correctly in terms of the way that it's classified, but do you help to guide on that as well in terms of, well, this should be a default, or this should be the default, or what's not, or is that a step too far?
Some clients know what it should be and they will instruct or guide us. A lot of them won't. We'll maybe provide them with a lookup table or a master list that they can look at. I do training sometimes. I've got my quote methodology, which is make sure your data has quote on. It might be the season where we're taking hours off, but you need to keep your data one on.
Certainly in here today.
Yeah. It's a bit toasty. So it's got to be consistent. So it's, are we using the same terminology? I mean, I've heard of customer being defined in different ways within the same organisation, depending on which department you're talking about. Date formats, units of measurement, all those things get on the same page, because most companies are now looking at global data sets. So you need to have, if you have 2 different dates, or at the same date but in 2 different formats, and you're trying to match documents based on a date, they're not going to match. So it's going to be a problem. Then it needs to be organised, so like your wardrobe, have everything by style, type, maybe by colour. You just pull it out and get what you need really easily. Data's very much the same. Categorise it. Someone asks you, how much have we sold of this in this month? 2 years ago, you could go, there you go. You're not spending a week trying to cut and paste the data together, figure out what it is, all that kind of stuff. And it's got to be accurate as well. So define what that is. It depends on the data. If you're in finance, the numbers have to be 100% accurate, but it could be something else for a different department. Yeah. And then when you have all those things, you have trustworthy data. So you can go to like senior management with your analytics and your charts and your reporting and your graphs, and they can look at it, and you can be confident that those numbers are right, that they won't be able to pick holes in it. And sadly, sometimes I think the senior managers don't know how to interrogate the data either, so they don't even know if it's wrong.
I think what often happens is that people like us get slated first because we present something that we've clearly not analysed correctly. And it's like, no, this is the data. This is what you asked for. It's just not in the right shape that you need it as well.
Something that actually is really important when building a taxonomy, I was telling you, there's like professional services, HR, IT. Make it analytics friendly for charts. Think about those things, how it's going to look when you build a chart. Don't type out information technology. That's my phone. Sorry, you can just like.
We'll just let it. That's what the buzzing is. It's Susan's phone.
Stop in a minute. It's so loud. Go away.
It is quite loud. It is quite loud. Well, you know what we'll do? Well, there you go. It's finished now. Can you remember where you were?
I was talking about chart-friendly analytics there.
There you go. Yes.
And actually, that's not just for for taxonomies, but anything. When you're doing any kind of chart, make it user-friendly, easy to read. I did a dashboard challenge recently with some F1 data for Onyx data.
It's good data to use.
It was amazing. All the different ways that the data was interpreted. But some of them, I looked at the analytics and didn't know what any of it meant.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. We're all living our own wheelhouse, doesn't it? And just on that, I just want to bring up Angel's comment here. The best tool you can have is common sense. And I think that was actually referring back to some of the things we were talking about before. But it's absolutely true, and never a truer word was said. So...
Can be in short supply sometimes.
So but we don't always have to have common sense, though. So what I wanted to do was talk, Susan, a little bit about how you've sort of ended up here, because you've got like the data den and you've got Dundee and now you're living down south. So how has all of that sort of happened? And obviously you're in Edinburgh today, but it's just a bit of a flying visit.
Yeah, Glasgow tomorrow. And then Dundee, London yesterday. I'm in Helsinki next month. That's quite exciting.
Nice.
I know. Check me out.
I know.
And London again. Honestly, I would joke and say I'm not quite sure what happened, but it's been a lot of hard work. And the reason that I'm now seem to be in everybody's feeds all the time, is because when I started my business, I could see there was clearly a need for what I was doing, but nobody else was doing it as a standalone service. Nobody was looking for me because they didn't know I existed. So I had to do something different to get noticed. And as it turns out, people like what I'm doing to get noticed, and they can resonate with it. I think that data can get a bit of a hard rep as being a bit geeky, boring, but there's a huge, massive fun side to data, and I can see that every day on LinkedIn. And obviously I want to grow my business and pay my bills, etc. But I really am passionate about just spreading the word of educating people on like you're wasting so much time. Just clean your data and keep it clean. Maintenance is the secret sauce. There's nothing more than that. Check it regularly. Get to know your data, because especially in the procurement world, there's loads of fraud going on. If you don't know your data, how are you going to spot it? How are you going to know if something looks right or not if you're only looking at it once a year? And that could apply to all different kinds of data. If you're looking at geolocations and you've got a list in a certain area and everything starts with a 1 and then this one starts with a 2, for something like, I don't know how that works, but suddenly it's like, that doesn't look right. I know that all this area starts with a 1. So things like that, it all helps.
So here's one for you then. you see me. I occasionally have posts about retro gaming. I think I'm up to number 9 on here, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the taxonomy of what retro means and where the line is drawn with retro on there. Because we had a little bit of a discussion about this.
Where's your joystick?
Where's the joystick? Well, obviously George is smirking even hearing that comment on a standalone basis, but we were.
I would take a walk.
I think so. I think so. We were talking about retro, and I suppose this is quite relevant because it's not a definitive term, right? So a lot of times you go to companies and they're like, well, we're not quite sure what should be in this group. And this is my point with the retro side of things, because for me, retro is anything further back than the Wii, probably. Even though I go a bit further forward for some of my posts, I really count the Wii in backwards from there.
Right.
But you dug deep and you pulled out like the ZX Spectrum, to which I replied with a Pong. Pong is not a smelly thing. Pong is one of the first video games as well. Everyone knows that, all right? So
I have so many happy memories of the Spectrum. Dizzy the Egg.
Oh yeah.
All the Dizzy games.
Oh, Dizzy.
Spy Hunter.
Booty.
I mean, mine goes back to
Chucky
BBC
Egg.
Micro. Chucky Egg and the BBC Micro.
Chucky Egg.
And Decimal Defence.
Did you have Granny's Garden at school?
Oh, do you know what? Yeah, I'm groaning as though it's a bad thing, but yeah, on the BBC Micro, Granny's Garden, and I once took a course that taught you how to pretty much code something like Granny's Garden. Wow. It really wasn't that difficult. Yeah. But that was... I was going to say, was that Happy Days? I don't know. Granny's Garden was quite spooky.
That was when we had like literally one computer and you hardly ever got a turn on it. That's right.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, well, one computer for the whole class, and you had to book a slot to get on the computer. Yeah. So, but the really burning question is, which Spectrum are you talking about? Are you talking about the little rubber-keyed 48K, the wee Toty one? No. Are you talking about the +2 with the cassette deck on the end?
No, we had
or are you talking about the +3 with the disc drive and the light gun and Operation Wolf and all of that stuff going on as well?
No, we had just the keyboard, and then we had a tape machine that we plugged in.
Oh, the separate tape machine?
Yeah, and then
Yeah, so it was... Cyan, I don't know if that's a taxonomy thing. Cyan and magenta lines, and then it was yellow and blue, and it used to change the... George is looking a bit confused. Spectrum loading screens we're talking about now. ZX Spectrum loading screens. So it's quite interesting that is something that's so long ago now, and retro for me is always a bit of a debatable term. I twist it to what I need to post about it. So
you get a lot of these games online now, and I still love going to play Dizzy, but I get really frustrated if I can't get the right angle or something.
Yeah.
But then after that, it was the Mega Drive, and Sonic was the next thing.
Right. I went from the ZX81 and learning BASIC, which was 10 print high, line 20 go to line 10, and then you just get it. And
line 30 beep.
Then I went to, I think it was Snake on my Nokia 3310.
Actually, you probably haven't even heard of this, but my dad worked for Philips, and they had a gaming console called the CDI.
CDI, yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
So we had that, so we played a load of games on that as well.
I think it was
Zelda was where that started.
Well, I think it was the first console to have Dragon's Lair on it as well. I think the Laserdisc version of it was Dragon, which was the first sort of arcade rendition, accurate rendition of a arcade console. Dragon's Lair.
There was a game called Mystic Midway where you just had to shoot like lots of dead ghosts. I loved that game. That made me late for school more than once.
That is happy days. Days.
I mean, I think the first one I probably played was Doom. My brother installed Doom on, can't remember what computer it was. It was a PC, but this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
Daley Thompson's Olympics as well.
Daley Thompson's Decathlon. There's the original joystick breaker. Yes. Anyone who's listening who's played Daley Thompson's Decathlon or anything called Decathlon or track and field.
What was really frustrating, did you ever play The Never Ending Story?
I have not played that one, no.
I mean, that was literally just go around circles on that one.
Really?
Yeah. Although, in saying that, I did an online team night out earlier in the year. It was an online room escape, and 6 intelligent people on a call. And after an hour and a half, we managed to solve 3 clues and couldn't get out. So we gave up. So, Just saying, maybe not much has changed really.
Well, yeah, and just touching on that a little bit. Obviously, we're very lucky that we're all in the same room together, and restrictions have eased a little bit for now. But how have you found the whole pandemic thing, especially with the team? Has your team fluctuated over that period, and how did you find things going or not going during that whole time?
I chuckle because I've worked from home for 10 years, so everyone's freaking out about working from home, and I was like, I got my whole set up.
Taking your team all remote as well.
Yeah, well, it was just me really until about just over 2 years ago. So it was me. I mean, the only thing downside of the pandemic was it used to be voice Zoom calls constantly. So it was PJs, no makeup, hair slapped back. It was great. And then suddenly everyone wants to see you, and it's like, I've got to put clothes on, I've got to make my hair nice. And that was the only downside. I really leveraged the networking, so I networked across the UK, across the US, really built up my network, which has really helped to grow the business. So in that time, I took on bigger projects, I grew my team. That doesn't come without its challenges, and I'm going to do a whole blog on what they don't tell you about business growth. Everyone tells you how hard it is to start a business. Like, nobody talks about the awful things that you have to deal with growing a business. Where you need more staff, but where are you going to get the money to pay all these people? Because everyone else pays you 60 days later. Or how do you manage team and performance and contracts? And now I've got employees, so the responsibility that I feel for making sure that people get paid every month is like massive. What things you need to grow, what you should be aware of, what you should look out for. I mean, it's I could do a whole section on that as well.
I guess your role changes then from being the business expert to somebody being a business manager. So from actually doing to managing.
Yeah, I don't get that involved in the day-to-day. I do all the training, I do all the checking and the QA, but I don't do much of the hands-on stuff. But when I get my hands on a piece of data to normalize, I'm at my happiest. I'm the salesperson, the marketing person, the cleaner, the finance person, the bookkeeper. I was the IT person when my latest employee started. I had to set up everything. You have to become good at a lot of things and quickly outsource the things that you're not so good at or you don't enjoy. But again, you need money for that.
Just the other day,
I think that's a really good lesson to take, actually, and just everything seems like an expense to start with, but you have to weigh it against the value of your own time, right?
Yeah.
What could you be doing with that extra 4 hours that you would spend doing your nut in because you can't reboot a laptop in the right way to get it out to someone? So,
or solicitor. I've got a solicitor. I don't want to be going on an online contract platform and picking something off and not being right. But also, my attitude is sometimes, well, I know I can do it 4 times as fast as them, so I'll just do it. But all those little hours add up, and suddenly you've got no time left.
That's one of the hardest things I've grappled with over my career. Is how do you do the knowledge transfer and not try and sort of almost micromanage, say, well, that's not quite how I would have done it. You've got to trust your staff to actually do it, because quite often when you step back, they do it better, I found.
Well, I'm finding that with my data analyst. He is blowing my expectations out of the water. I am so lucky to find him, and I'm going to make sure nobody knows who he is because I'm keeping him. You can't have him. But they do say hire people who are smarter than you. Like, I know where my skills are, and I'm going to focus in on growing those skills. I'm not going to try and start learning new skills.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
And evidently, and we have to mention this, you're doing something right, because I believe that you've had some awards come your way of late, and I know you probably don't want to, or maybe you do really want to mention it. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how that came about? Because to be honest, I just was scrolling on a list one day and I was like, flipping heck, there's Susan.
MG.
That's awesome. So
this is the Data IQ 100.
Yes.
Literally bucket list thing, TikTok right there. So it's something that you can nominate yourself for, or someone can nominate you for. I nominated myself. I have no idea if anyone else nominated me.
Yeah.
I applied last year and the year before, and I was gutted when I didn't get it last year, but it didn't stop me. And actually, I did so much more last year. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply, but I think it'll be another year before maybe I'll be considered.
Yeah.
So when I got the news, and I had to sit on it for about 2 months, I was just, I could not believe that I got on the list. Because also, you're knocking someone else off. I think 40% of the list was new people this year. So a lot of people were knocked off. But I think I'm doing pretty awesome. And also, I think I would like to think that I'm a good role model, not just for women, but for anyone who thinks they can't do something. You know, I'm living proof that get knocked down, just get up and keep on going. There's always another way to get things done.
Absolutely.
I am smiling on that because we had a conversation earlier today about getting knocked down and getting back up again. Something about a completely different direction. Maybe that's something for another time. But also, I mean, you had a bad time the first time around, right? It was tough for you.
I couldn't even afford to go bankrupt. I mean, it was awful. I had threats of bailiffs coming to knock down my door, people phoning me all the time, and I couldn't do anything about it because I couldn't go bankrupt. It took me about 6 months to afford to save up and pay for that. And when I did, it was instant weight off my shoulders. I just could breathe again and focus on just setting myself up again. And I've never been too proud to start from the bottom somewhere, which is exactly what I did. I went into a spend analytics company, which I thought was just like a data entry type role. You know, I just thought I just need to work. I didn't want to work doing something that I didn't enjoy. So, for example, you would never see me in a restaurant or a bar. I'm a terrible service person. I stuck to the things I knew I could do, and I was more than prepared to take on a couple of jobs as well. And I learned this whole new skill, and look where I am. You know, I could never have imagined that this is where I would be 10 years later.
Perseverance. It does pay off.
Yeah. I think it's also, again, that so many people are told to kind of improve the areas that they're not good at, but actually I'm all about focusing on the things you're good at and making them even better, never mind the stuff that you're not so good at.
I agree. The world's big enough that even if it's just a niche that you're focusing on, you will find a market.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, and it's not a mistake. It's great to fail and to learn something from that failure and do it quickly. And I think a lot of people, when they go into business, don't quite know what they're best at, right? Yeah. And that is often a reason that they don't quite make it the first time around. Yeah. They're just fumbling around. They don't know about accountants, and they don't know how to deal with people, and they don't know how to even do the job that they think they're good at properly.
You've just, congratulations, gone out there. Mm-hmm. And, people will be, what's your sweet spot? Who's your target client? Yeah. And what's the, what turnover? I didn't know that till in the last year.
Yeah.
You need to find out, do research, get to know your market. Yeah. You might have an idea, but they might actually not be your target client at all. Mm-hmm. And I really, kind of felt like I was doing it wrong because I didn't know all this stuff. And who are you marketing to? I'm marketing to everybody, really. Mm-hmm. There's no right or wrong way to do it if it's working. That's what I would say.
And I think that you've sort of ended up aligned with procurement, haven't you? You found that's the specific niche of the niche that you're in.
Well, it's interesting because engagement-wise, it's the data community on LinkedIn that I have the most connection and activity with. But client-wise, it's mainly procurement or marketing that come my way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're the ones with the dirty data.
That is.
And I guess that's was your background originally.
Yeah, but I didn't have a single connection in the industry when I set up the business. I had, I say, that's why I had to be wild on LinkedIn just to get noticed. And hello, I'm here.
That's totally true. That's totally true. And I mean, I can see that we're just sort of pulling up to the hour here, which is unbelievable because it feels like we've only been here for about 10 minutes. But I mean, just in terms of wrapping all of this up, Susan, if you were to give sort of 3 top things that people should look out for when they're dealing with their dirty data, what would be your top 3 things? Or change the 3 number to something that's appropriate for you.
You have to know your data. Look at it regularly. Like, you will not fix your problems if you don't understand your data. And if you have to work with a specialist in that area, then do that. And maintain it. That is so important to maintain it. So many people pay to get something fixed and then leave it.
Yeah.
You'll be back within a year or 2 to fix the same thing again and pay all over. And then data quote, make sure your data has to quote on people, consistent, organised, accurate, and trustworthy. And I've got to say, we didn't even talk about the book. I've got a book, Between the Spreadsheets, classifying and fixing dirty data.
So the link to the title of the show now becomes clear. Yes.
I completely forgot about that. So
when
that
did
is
you have time to
available.
write the book?
Oh, it was last year. I did most of it in a month last year.
Right. Wow.
And don't ever ask me to write a book again.
And very quickly then, what would you say would be the biggest value that I would get from clearing my data? Because I could be a CEO or somebody of influence in an organization and think, yeah, but I know that when I look at this number, it's US and then US, and then in my brain I just join these numbers. What is the?
Wouldn't you like an easier life?
Wouldn't I? Wouldn't we all?
Ultimately, that's what it is. Less stress, better data, better business decisions.
I think that's important. Better business decisions. Business decisions based on fact. And then the insights just show themselves when your data's correct.
The insights don't happen unless the fundamentals sit underneath. And I think just finding that route to glory is just the arduous task that we all need to teach businesses, or we all need to preach to businesses that they need to get on with, and just do it. Just do it. Take the time out.
GFDI, as they say.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll nod. I didn't say I know what that means, but yeah.
I'm not gonna just effing do it.
Yes. That sounds perfect. That sounds perfect. Well, look, as I say, we're sort of pulling up on the hour here. So, Susan, I suppose what remains from our side.
Are you taking me to the pub now?
Well, this is just the end of the show. Everyone else can SOD off at the end of the call, and we'll disappear somewhere else. But it's been absolutely amazing to have you in the room and up here as well.
Great.
And it's a great thing for you to be part of this first, which is our first ever live data mix, and we hope to do many more in the future as well. So thank you very much, Susan. In terms of our next show, folks, well, I can't give you all the details yet, but what I can say, and George doesn't even know this yet, well, I probably should have said to him before the show, but we did talk about it earlier briefly. We do have another Data IQ 100 guest up for the next episode of the show,
who are you sharing that list with?
which was just closed this morning in terms of that getting that. So we haven't managed to specify the date yet, but you can bet that we'll have it out there soon, and it'll all be clarified in the next couple of days. So we are super. You were first. Okay. You were first in the room. First Data IQ. First Scott. First Iron Brew. All the first. So yeah, George. Any sort of closing words before we sort of knock this thing off and all go to the pub?
Just thank you very much for your enthusiasm, and it's always good to bubble this stuff up to the top because it's so easily forgotten. Yet when you come to do a project, and I have the first-hand pain of this, when you come to do a project and you look at all that bad data and realise that you're only getting 50% of your data joins, the other half of the data, I have no idea what's going on in there, but I can only, it makes perfect sense, but it's always an afterthought. So yes, folks, get it to the front.
It's not an afterthought, folks. It's something that you need to do. And that is a message.
You need an evangelist. Every organisation needs an evangelist saying, come on, fix the data at source or as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you could be missing out on, a very profitable product that you could be
it's not
pushing.
even that. It's all the money wasted, and not just like through buying products or services, but the time that your team spend fixing things, like the 10-hour example, in a week.
That's crazy. We all need to do better. We all need to do better, and we will do better. Hopefully, the word has
just had a conversation today.
Yeah. Well, look, folks, we want to thank you, everyone out, for your time. This was episode 9 of the Data Mix, and we look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.